And I actually sat in on one of your Monday, the Monday sessions that you guys did probably a year ago or so. I remember.
I'm Misha, and I'm also a doula intern. And I'm just here to learn.
I'm a doula as well. What's your name? Jessica. Jessica. Okay. My name is Sophia. I am, I guess now, an official board member of Conference Child Care.
No,
And I'm a bit of a birth junkie, but have multiple young children, so I'm not ready to jump in, with both feet, but always ready to learn.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm a British trained registered nurse. I'm not a midwife. I have joined Jenny today, my first day as the operations director. So I'm sort of more the talking end than the business end.
Sorry.
Yeah,
we're just stalling a little bit because there's just kind of a big traffic problem out there.
Yeah.
Were you in that? You just did that?
Yeah, I went the wrong way, and I was like, this is why I wasn't supposed to come this way. No, I just took a turn that I don't normally take. I was like, let me see if this is. No, that was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Beryl.
Beryl. And you're on staff here, it looks like.
I'm interning.
Interning.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And you're Stephanie.
I am Stephanie, working with Kathy Bradley with Childbirth Concierge to Black Patient Educator, Childbirth Educator.
Okay. Great. Well, I know that my friend Rebecca's coming. She's my colleague and her husband Trey. They're filmmakers and she's a parenting specialist. She should be here in a minute. Oh, they are. Okay. So how do I advance the slides?
Oh, with that laptop, you would just need to press the yes button.
Come on in. Hi. Good to see you. This is my friend Rebecca.
Oh,
This is.
Hi.
She drove
a long way.
2 hours. We
Yeah.
got stuck in that really bad. Yeah. We got stuck in traffic too. I just got here. Oh. Yeah. So please come. Yeah. Trey didn't want to come in. Only if I look good. Yeah.
Sounds like
Don't
take pictures of my butt.
Yeah. Only if I look good. You gotta make me look good.
Okay.
No.
We'll be up in a minute.
Okay. Well, like I said, I had quite the journey getting here. My ears are a little stuffed, so I'm having a little trouble hearing, but they'll probably get better. If I'm talking too loud, because when you can't hear, you kind of talk real loud, Am I doing all right here? You guys can hear me okay? And I have a bit of a cough and cold. It's been over a week, so I figure I'm at the tail end. I cough a little, I'm sorry. So today I wanted to give this presentation to you. I want to support your program with science, and I've been thinking a lot about this presentation as I was writing it, and I really want you to feel what it is what I'm trying to say. So I have, neuroscience is a tricky thing. Once you start talking neuroscience, people's eyes kind of go glazed over, and I love it. I'm kind of a nerd like that. How many nerds are here? Okay, all right, so I have, I've created posters to illustrate this in a friendly way, because I feel like I want to get through to moms too about this, what the science is behind what I think makes Jenny's program successful. So that's my objective: is to support, to educate you, to have you feel the passion of this neuroscience. Because if I can imbue you with it, then you can educate others, and that would be my goal. But just consider, for example, what if I said there was a tool that's free and detects your safety wherever you go, easy to use, available all the time. Would you get one? Oops. Yeah. So how would it be if this tool was your body? So the catch is, you have to know how to program it. And that's what I'm going to teach you about tonight.
Okay, can you speak just a bit louder?
Yeah, all right. Hello to everybody out there in wherever you are. I really wish I could see you. So I don't know if there's a way that they can send in questions or anything.
They usually can
They're all
text
saying,
them.
we're a nerd and hello.
Hello.
Nerdland.
All right, so did you hear me that you have a tool that you can use all the time? It's accessible, it's free. It will tell you if you're safe or not, and it's your body. But the trouble is, not all of us feel safe in our body. And in order for us to really have a successful birth, you know what it takes. The mom has to feel safe. She has to feel supported. And our culture is really mixed up about that, right? So that's what tonight's about. It's about talking about safety. But, and what that means to our neuroscience and how we know we're safe. And it's a word that when I'm working with people, I don't use very often. Because a lot of people don't know what it feels like to feel safe. So I use other words. I use stable, secure, present. I help people identify states that feel good in the body. And I help them establish safety. That's one of my jobs. So I'm director of APA. So yeah, here's our orientation. This is our pathway tonight. I'm going to talk about APA a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the JJ Way, which will be reviewed. And you'll have to forgive me because I've just heard a few times, and I've been one of her fans for a long time, but I've never been to the clinic. I've seen pictures of the clinic. I've listened to Jenny talk. So it'll be reviewed for you. And then I'm going to talk about the theory that I feel like supports the success of the JJ Way. Because I met with Jenny came to my hometown, Charlottesville, Virginia. She was honored there by an organization called Birth Matters. And she often gets up there and she goes, I don't know why this works. It's just me up here. And I said to her that day, I know why it works. And I'm going to come and I'm going to show you and I'm going to give you the data. So that's our agenda tonight. And I'm going to end with a little bit of an experience for you about feeling safe. And you can always say no, you don't want to do it. Okay? So my key messages are we're hardwired for a connection and safety. This is bonding and attachment. How many of you are familiar with bonding and attachment? Yes. All right. So these experiences are encoded in the body as a felt sense. I mean, how we feel in the body. Right? They're implicit memory, which means memory that's really kind of beneath our cognitive brain. That brain that says, I remember that. Safety is something that starts in utero. Feeling connection starts before we're born. Oops. What happened? What's happening?
I don't know.
Is it stuck?
Love-hate relationship with technology.
Yeah, all right.
The computer didn't feel safe.
It started to speed up.
Hey,
That's okay.
There's chairs in the back there.
Yeah, please come on in. Sometimes when things get feeling overwhelmed, they tend to speed up. So I'm hoping that we'll just slow down here. All right. All right. So as professionals, we can support families with a very distinct skill set. I'm going to talk about that tonight. Especially, it includes how this place runs implicitly. Like, you all are doing it. How you greet people, how you are with people, especially how you are inside your own body. Like how you feel in your heart. And it reflects in your voice and in your face.
And it's doing Yep.
So is it like in an automatic program of some kind?
Yeah. And this is Caitlin's.
Hi, Terry.
All right, so what do I do to slow it down?
Jenny, keep it.
This one, and can you do that one? Okay. This is not good.
Is there a timer to slow them down?
No, because you'll need to
It
face
says
it.
who's timing, so click that off. Yeah. All that off. Okay. That's right. Good. So I'm director of education at APA, but I have other jobs. And one of them is I'm a therapist. I'm a somatic therapist. I work a lot with people who have trauma. I'm trained in somatic experiencing. Has anyone heard about that? I've trained in craniosacral therapy. I've trained in perinatal therapy and on massage. I do a lot of infant massage, and I do a lot of education about mother-baby bonding. So beyond that, though, I'm director of education at APA. And just to introduce APA a little bit, we started in 1983, and our mission statement is to help educate the public and professionals worldwide that babies are conscious, that they're sentient, that they have experiences, and these experiences have impact on our lives, our whole life long. And it was started by David Chamberlain in his book, The Mind of Your Newborn, which was published in 1988, and then republished in 1999. And Thomas Verney, Secret Life of the Unborn Baby, which is it's unborn child, published in 1981. So our roots were in the 80s, and just now the whole science of the mother-baby has come to the point where these books, even though they were written back then, are very current. I would definitely recommend The Secret Life of the Unborn Child. And these are our programs. We have a professional development program. We have an online program to become an educator. We're now just developing our Conscious Baby program. We have live lectures. You don't have to be a student to participate in the live lecture programs. Many of our pioneer practitioners and thinkers present in that program. I really highly recommend that you go to our website, birthpsychology.com, and check out our resources. This is some of our leaders. We have we have a diversity team, and we are giving messages to different populations that APA has tools for healing. And we're working with the Native American populations, African American populations, Latino populations. A regional conference, international conference is coming up in December in San Diego. So really, this is a definition of perinatal psychology. And what we've discovered is that we've been mistaken about babies. And while I've been a practitioner since 1999, I've watched science really discover babies. Back when I started early in the 1980s, when David Chamberlain and Thomas Verney started, they made this idea, or they had this way of thinking in our country, that babies didn't feel pain. They didn't suffer. They couldn't remember. And so there are big mistakes made in how we treated our moms and babies, and how we treated babies in particular. So we now know that babies do have experiences, that they can feel pain, and that the way babies are born matters, and the way their mothers feel during birth and before birth matters. But of course, I'm probably preaching to the choir here. You all probably knew. So, just as a way of introducing the science, I wanted to review the JJ way, which you all are fluent in, I'm sure. But I really have felt that her model is such good news. And even when we were on our way here, I asked her, how many people have picked up your model? Well, no one. Well, why not? I mean, I feel a certain degree of frustration because the theory is there, which I'm going to talk about tonight. The data is there. So I'm really trying to get what it is about our culture that won't move this forward. Because the data is phenomenal. And I'm going to show you, I have some statistics tonight that will show you just how abysmal our culture is at supporting women of color, especially. So here we have the data. I mean, there's just no arguing with that. And how hard Jenny's been working, and what a great impact that is. So when I talk about her, I show this slide and I have a circle like, look, 0. It's 0. So of course, here's how she does that: inspiring change, helping practitioners, providing access, connections, knowledge, and power. So really, I mean, her pregnancy outcomes and birth outcomes are some of the best I've ever seen. So what is behind all this? What is it? So I made this list, and I have gone and lectured about the JJ Way, even though I haven't been here, with Jenny's permission, of course, to medical students, to anybody who listened, really, because it's not that hard. The model itself is not that hard. But you have to really grasp that these are the important things to know. How you greet someone, how you make them feel welcome, meet them where they are, have grace, be kind. I mean, what is it about that we can't do so well in our medical models around supporting birth in our country? Now, I think nurses sometimes get that, midwives get that. Doulas, the science around doulas is amazing. So, I mean, I think, what did I read somewhere? If a doula was a pill, it would be prescribed regularly, right? So what is it about our human connection that makes it so hard for our culture? So how does it work? So I'm going to transition now into talking about polyvagal theory. And it has several components. I'm going to tell you about it in several different ways. I'm going to there's 3 sort of layers here. Each layer gets a little more complicated, but I want you to see some of the breadth of the science and how it works. So here, and I like to call it the polyvagal theory, there's a way we talk about it as a quest for safety. We have in our bodies the hardware that's constantly questing. Some of us don't need to quest because we innately feel safe. But we have part of our body that's always scanning. Is there danger here? And that's just how we're hardwired. That's how we're built. And we're not the only ones who have that. Well, mammals have it, for sure. So there's a way that their alertness and how they live their lives gave people information about how we live our lives. But we're a little more complicated. We have a lot of emotions. We have a cognitive brain that tries to make sense of things. So, but here's a map of the vagus nerve. So how many of you know about the vagus nerve? Have you studied it in school? And how it wanders through the whole body, how vagus means wanderer, and how it innervates so many of our organs, our heart, our throat, our ears, also our lungs, and then our stomach. And it bifurcates and goes in and really embraces the stomach. And it goes into the liver, the right kidney, and all throughout our guts, our organs, and our intestines. So I want you to get the sense that we are really embraced by this nerve. If this nerve could have a personality, it would be to embrace, to hold, and to give information back to our brain about how we're feeling. 80% of the fibers in that huge nerve are feeding information back to our brain. So it's sensing, and it's sensitive, and yet resilient. So I want you to befriend your vagus and imagine that it's holding you. And
It's 7 o'clock.
The hardware that's helping you feel safe.
My computer speaks to me.
Good. And they still have everybody there?
They're still there. They're still there.
Everyone? Good. All right. So when we're talking about this theory, I'll tell you about the man who created it, Stephen Porges, and his book. I'll show you his book. Like I carry this book around and I read little bits of it all the time because there's always so much. It's kind of a dense He uses lots of words that you have to think, okay, what exactly is he saying? So I'm going to simplify it as much as I can for you. But there are three distinct parts of this nerve. It's keyed into the autonomic nervous system, which is part of our central nervous system. And what he said was that we all heard of the sympathetic part and the parasympathetic part. But we have another part. It's called the social nervous system. And that's our face and our voice and our heart. And that is why I called this talk tonight, how to fit this unique connection of the face, the voice, and the heart can help increase birth outcomes. Because I think that's what you do here. It's that. It's how you're feeling in your heart. And how Jenny leads this. How she's helped you come to it in a way. I mean, this is from what I've heard. What I've imagined. Because all of what she says is filled in 3 dimensions, this neuroscientific theory. And so there's 3 parts, and not just 2, sympathetic and parasympathetic. There's 3. Social engagement, sympathetic, and parasympathetic. And they have parts that really work for us and parts that keep us safe. And I'm going to talk to you about those parts now. So here they are, social engagement, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Polyvagal means that there are many roots of this nerve. There's 4 distinct roots of it. And so it's like there's many facets to this nerve, polyvagal many. So there's ways that people talk about it, like the part that keeps us connected and safe, that's the smart vagus. But then there's another part that really will shut us down if we're in a too heightened sense of danger, and that's what we call the dorsal vagus. So I don't ever call it the donor. So there's all kinds of ways to talk about it. So, but what is safety? Like, how do you know you're safe? Ask me. How do you all know you're safe? Anybody?
Feel good.
You feel good. So what is good? What is good like? Is it warm? Is it peace? Solid? Peaceful?
Harmony.
Harmony. Yes, excellent. So it's perception. It's based a little bit on your perception. So what can be overwhelming for one person is not overwhelming for another, right? And how many people have you helped at birth where they want to be touched and they want to be held, and the people who don't want to, that's too close, stand over there, Everyone's different. Everyone's different in their body, and what feels good to them might not feel good to another. So, but there are some things that we can talk about in general. And again, I think it's the face and the voice and the heart. So here we're talking about memory. And there's 2 different kinds of memory. There's the explicit memory, which is you totally remember that. I remember when that happened, which is the story. But then there's the implicit, and that's sort of in your body. And now when I first started teaching, we didn't talk about this. Implicit memory wasn't talked about. Plasticity was just being discovered. Mirror neurons were discovered while I had been teaching. And so the idea that we remember things in our body wasn't accepted. And now it's just becoming accepted. And we can know that there's parts of you that are in your body, and you might not actually remember that they happened, but sometimes you'll feel them. And the man I study a lot with is Peter Levine, who created this somatic experiencing. He calls them hot. They're easily kindled. So you'll be going along and you'll have an experience that reminds you of something that you went through that was overwhelming. And suddenly the memory of that floods your system. And you'll feel adrenaline, and your heart rate will go up, and you'll feel it looking around thinking, oh my God, I'm somehow being affected here. I'm not safe. When actually it's memory. And so there's skills you can learn just to be in your body, look around. Oh, I don't see anything happening here. In fact, I'm in a room full of friends, really. So there's ways that these memories will rise up. So when we start talking about birth, we often will say, okay, everyone in this room has been born. So if I tell you a story, and it's similar to your story, I want you to know that maybe you might remember parts of it I describe it just right, about your birth. But you just know, like, you've been born and you made it, and everybody made it. So when we're working with parents, often their birth sometimes plays a role in how babies are born, because it's a memory. So I work a lot with helping people realize when they're in an implicit memory, when it's in their body, and it's not in the now. And then I have skills that I help teach them how to be with that memory. But they arise naturally, and then all of a sudden your present day calm, peace, feeling of safety is hijacked, and you're feeling scared. And that happens a lot. It can happen when you're driving down the road, you know, and you remember a time when you almost went off the road, right there. Oh, and then you have the memory. So I work a lot with this implicit memory, and birth is a memory. And what we're discovering is that babies not only remember birth, but they remember in utero also. And we're tracking that through science, through neurochemicals, and their mother's experience. And I'm going to talk to you about that. All right, like I say, we're hardwired to quest for safety. It starts in utero. So the baby comes into form, is in there. The mother is the first home of the baby. The mother doesn't feel safe, doesn't know. The baby probably gets the message. The mother's having a stressful time. Their body will flood with that neurochemicals, and the baby will get the message. And that's why prenatal bonding is so key. You can differentiate for your baby. You can talk with the baby. I'm just attending this lecture about, you know, mothers and babies, and there's nothing here that's threatening, or nothing here that's a problem. And I want you, and I love you, and I can't wait to meet you. And we teach these differentiation skills all the time to our parents. But what are the conditions that influence how we feel? And we know a lot about this now, starting ancestrally, so who our people are behind us, our prenatal experiences, our birth experiences, and how we are in relationship. Because the relationship is not only just something that we do emotionally, it's part of our hardwiring. It's a biological relationship as well. So we teach a lot about how we are attached, how we come into a relationship, and who is there for us. Was there somebody there? And how to recognize that. So we do a lot of working with people that way. And of course, there's societal and cultural conditions, which I'll talk about that in a little while more. But our culture doesn't do media cultures very well. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about racism, discrimination, and what some of our women are experiencing, and also our youth. I feel like our youth are suffering also. So there's societal and cultural conditions. So I'm going to shift now, and I'm going to talk about some of these little ways that we remember. I'm going to give you some information, some data, and I'm going to talk a little bit about stress. So here we have, this is A Ghost in Your Genes. Has anyone heard about this documentary? Anybody watched it? No? Fantastic documentary. Produced by the BBC, I think, PBS Nova. It's online. If you Google it, you can find it. It's a part of our program for students. I have them watch it to understand epigenetics. And this was a wonderful documentary that showed how trauma crosses generations. So here we have a picture of a boy who's suffering in the Dutch famine. And the Dutch famine was during World War II. The Nazis embargoed a town in the Netherlands and Holocaust, Dutch. And so they could only eat 400 calories a day. And it went on for months. And so that when they got through with that period of time, they analyzed the women who were pregnant. And they found that for the women who were pregnant at the time in the first trimester, the children that were born to those women later on as adults had difficulty with obesity and cardiovascular disease. So in other words, their early experience set them up for their bodies to feel like there was famine, and then their bodies didn't know how to process food that well. Okay? The babies that were in utero during that time that were in the second and third trimester, they were born smaller, and they had other issues associated with that. So this was a case that they were able to really document the actual environment that these women were experiencing while they were pregnant, and then watch these cohorts of children as they grew. And they were able to see that the experience of those mothers really did have an impact on the baby. This is the science that is behind now our understanding that babies have experiences in utero. This is one case. But that movie is really good because it gives you more than just the Dutch fandom. It talks about how impeccably some of the Swedish researchers could find the impact of different experiences in their people because of the records that they have. And so you're able to see experiences that happen in the grandmother and how they even jumped generations and would show up in the second generation beyond that. And what we now really understand is the science of epigenetics, how our bodies change and how they are influenced by our experiences, and if we're pregnant, they affect the baby. So here's another case study. It's called the Quebec ice storm. It was in 1998, and it was a large storm in Quebec where the temperatures were just really cold, very, very stressful. There was no electricity for some areas only 4 or 5 days, but some areas up to 45 days. And so the women that were pregnant at that time, they were able to identify the children from those areas, and they were able to see how the stress that those mothers were under affected those babies, not only right after birth, but now they've been able to measure, this is in my notes in my bag, but they're able to measure at up to 5.5 and 6.5. The way those children now carry in stress markers of post-traumatic stress. And they are able to identify different times in pregnancy and how they affect their lives today. And there are a few other studies that have demonstrated that. And there's the research of Rachel Yehuda. Has anyone heard of her? She has some fabulous interviews of the women who were pregnant during the Holocaust, and how they've been able to examine the children and the grandchildren of that population and see how post-traumatic stress from that generation shows up in subsequent generations. And she also was the one that did the research on the Twin Towers. In this study, they were able to find women who were pregnant during the Twin Tower attacks. And they were able to see that the women who, in the first trimester especially, the babies born to these women carried the markers for PTSD. They're still tracking this cohort of children. So this is a picture of Gerlinda Mess. She came to our last International Congress. Her research is on rats, but she is particularly passionate about stress. So what she did in her research was that she took a cohort of rats and she stressed them out. And she stressed them out by putting them in water and not having there be no way for them, the rats, to be rest. And so the rats all survived, but they were traumatized by that. So they began to examine the children of these rat cohorts. And they found that the marker for PTS, or stress, would show up in microRNA. And that these rats, over subsequently 4 generations, they would show up. So the question she began to ask was, so we can see that there's a signature of stress that can get passed on from your great-grandmother to your great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother to your great-grandmother to your grandmother to your mother, and then to you. So she asked the question, how many of you know your great-great-grandmother? And how many of you know the story of your people? Because these will also affect how we feel in our body. And birth stories have a way of really affecting, how we're born, how our mother tells our birth story, and all the experiences of the women before us. So it's really important, I think, to understand that the way our ancestors lived, they will affect our bodies in different ways. I also, because I love science and I'm always asking people questions, there are genotypes that will show resiliency no matter what. So some ways, some of us are more sensitive than others. They've been able to identify these genes inside of us that make us more resilient or more sensitive. And so there are ways we can help our mothers in their bodies, and there are ways we can help our babies developing in utero. And then there are ways we can help our environment that they come in to get care, and ways we can help the caregivers. And I'm going to shift into talking more about that. All right, so this is the ancestors. Basically, humans are about patterns from the inside out. Everyone is unique. And what is on the outside influences what's on the inside. So we just had a lecture in the Monday Live with Thomas Burney, who's writing about memory. And there was a question from a student that said, well, what about twins? Twins are the same parent in the same environment. And he said, wait a minute. One twin might have their head closer to the mother's heart. Another might be transverse or smaller. If they don't share the same placenta, what are the placentas like? I mean, there's more going on in here than just a baby. There's more of a story happening in here. And I thought that was a good way of putting it, because we all have different experiences. And even one set of parents, when they have their first baby, they're not the same parents when they have a second baby. So there's lots of ways of thinking about it. So we're about patterns. And my job in particular is helping people, audiences like you, become aware of our patterns, both inside and out. So here is just a gentle introduction to some of the science. So we all have these ways of being in our bodies where, right, here's a healthy nervous system. I want you to notice over here the normal range. We have a normal range for our sympathetic nervous system. That's excitement, right? It's not all like fight or flight and fear. It's activity. Like, I imagine that my functional range right now, I'm pretty up here with my cortisol, loving what I do. I love getting up there and teaching you. So I'm pretty sure my body has certain levels of cortisol in it, some a little adrenaline. So that's normal, natural, called activation, right? But it's healthy. And then, oops, secure anywhere. So then there'll be a time when my body says, okay, that's enough. You need to rest. Right? And we all have that. So I'm going to show you different maps of that. I want you to get the feel of it in different ways. So here we have the functional range. And that's one of my favorite ways of talking about the way we feel in our body when we feel normal, when we feel present, right? So I see all these things in babies. Okay. So part of my job has been going around and normalizing babies are people. They're people. They have experiences. And that's when the template gets laid down, right? How people are with each other. So to be in your functional range, you're open, you're curious, you're relaxed but alert. You're able to be present, you feel stable, you feel fluid. Sometimes it can be more spontaneous. There's no threat. There's a feeling of, I want to be here, I want to be with you. So everything feels manageable, right? And when they don't feel manageable, you know how to reach out. And that's that social engagement piece, right? I'll talk more about that. So when there's symptoms of stress, say there's an event, you're coming down the road and there's a car that jumps right in front of you when you go off. That was scary. Your nervous system goes above that functional range, so that fight flight gets kicked on. It's automatic. It's part of the autonomic nervous system. And then, but your body can't sustain that. So naturally, it will begin to shut it down. So it then goes, it will drop below the range. The story I like to tell here is when the Twin Towers attack happened, we were living in Washington, D.C., and my husband lived near the Pentagon. And there was an airplane that flew into the Pentagon. So he called me, said, Edith, everyone's been released from work, it's been an attack, I'm driving home. He came home, he was flustered, attack, crazy. And he sat on the couch and fell asleep, just like that. His body couldn't sustain the high levels of cortisol and adrenaline and epinephrine that were being released in his body. So that's an example. It's extreme, but that's an example of what happens when we go up high, we drop low, and then our body will again shoot up and come down. And sometimes we get stuck on or stuck off, or sometimes they're both on at the same time. And that's my job is to help educate people about this and what to do about it. So here we have what it looks like when you're stuck off. Depression, lethargy, lack of motivation, disorientation, disconnection, complex syndromes like fibromyalgia, chronic pain. Are we getting squeaks over there?
Yes, but never mind.
And then when you're stuck on, there can be anxiety and panic attacks and irritability and lack of sleep and digestive disorders, all these disorders of the body. And what we're finding out now is that this idea around what settles us, what helps us feel good, is often another person who we love, a face, a voice in the heart, right? But most of our disorders 90% of them now are connected to stress. In fact, Bruce Lipton just said only 1% of our chronic illnesses have a genetic component. So we're looking at now, understanding this theory is going to revolutionize our health care. Maybe not in the next 4 years, but maybe after that. So here's the sequence. So this is natural. This is what your body does when it's overwhelmed. Right? You get, did you hear that sound? It sounds good. So then what happens? You look around. What was that? What was that? And then the next thing, you talk to her. Did you hear that noise? Are we okay? You think we're all right in here? She says, we're all right. Okay, good. But if we weren't all right, there'd be this sense of, I gotta get out of here. And sometimes people will want to fight. Right? That's a natural response to a threat. And then if we can't get out, we'll go into a freeze state. This is our natural, normal response to being overwhelmed. A shutdown. Sleep. Right? Immobilization. So my job is to recognize these patterns and help people go from these frozen states into more active states to being socially engaged and seeing safety, connection, togetherness. So here's what I have to say. The polyvagal theory, what I want you to hear, every time you hear that word, I want you to hear recognizing your story and creating capacity for living fully. And the key words are reclaiming those natural instincts that are ours and having us really be able to embrace them, right? To love them, to know what they are, to recognize them as patterns, but also realize that when we do that, we can restore, create, right? We can recognize, we can live more fully. That's the basis of the theory. Now, Stephen Porges, which is this man here, a big chapter in his books on working with premature babies. And he had a real passion for understanding how babies learn, how they come into form, and what endangers them, and why these patterns get set up in our bodies. So if you're brave, I would buy the book and take in little bits at a time. That's what I do. I'm constantly going, but I can only do little bits of it at a time. There are other resources out there on the polyvagal theory, some good, simpler books. But in any case, I developed these posters to help you get a felt sense of anatomy that's a part of the polyvagal theory. So here is our social engagement system, all these nerves, right? Guess what? The key nerves for breastfeeding also. Okay. So sometimes you can work with your face to influence the way a baby's face, all the nerves there, the face, high as the map. It's a little more complicated than that for a lot of us with our tongue. But the face and the voice, the nerves innervate our voice. And so when you talk to a baby, how do you talk sometimes? You sing a little bit, yeah? Hi, hi. So they found out also that the mother's voice is what the babies hear and love the most. So I often will say to my families, pick a lullaby while you're pregnant. And when you and your husband are sort of snuggling and feel safe, sing the song to your baby. And I did this with my second baby, and when she was born, it was a very fast birth. I had very fast. She cried and cried, and I sang her the song. And I had a doula, and the doula said, my God, your baby knows this song. I'm like, yeah. She quieted right down. Song. Babies love to be sung to. And this is part of our social engagement system. And here's the way that we get innervated by this nerve. So when you look at that picture, I want you to feel the contact of this nerve. It's holding us, embracing us. It's giving us information. All right, so here's another map. Just like I told you, I'm going to give you several different ways to think and feel about this theory. So this is a map that was thought to be by a woman named Bridget Fixman. And she calls this little flow here the river of life. And here's the functional range, these two lines. It's functional, we function, the ways we are in our bodies, right? So in the middle is the health, like social engagement. I feel connected, I feel interested, not reactive, but appropriately connected. I feel capable. There's a place of ease, and it's often socially connected. Not all of us, some of us are more introverted, but still, there's a place in the middle of feeling connected. So when we get very active, which is that part of the sympathetic nervous system that's functional, I feel mobilized. I'm ready to play, interact with others. I take action. I go to work. And then there are times of the day when you want to rest, right? And that's our nervous system. That's that vagus nervous system operating. And that vagus, all of those, that vagus nerve plus all of our face, our voice, and our heart are connected to our autonomic nervous system, which is very key to the stress response. We'll talk about that. But when you get above the range, again, you can get very reactive, fearful. You want to fight. You want to run. Right? Run away. And then, if you can't do that, you just shut down. You become numb. You feel stuck. And it can be complicated at times. So how do you respond to stress? Right? What happens for you all when you get stressed out? Anybody? What do you do? Anybody else?
Your heart rate increases.
Yeah, right. I'm going to talk some more about the anatomy, but what are some?
Shout.
Yeah.
Want to pull my hair?
Yeah. Yeah, you're mobilized. You feel more mobile. I buy books when I'm stressed.
Good shopping, that sounds good.
Shopping, yeah. So here, you snap at people, you cry. Sometimes I cry when I'm stressed. You blame others, you get too busy, you procrastinate, you call a friend, you sleep, you breathe. Some of us still breathe. It's very minimal. So there are all these habits that we form on how to help mediate our stress, right? So this is a picture I had made to help you understand that what happens when we get stressed. So this is called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis. You know what that is, who are out here who are nurses and midwives and who studied your anatomy. So here's this little triangle here is the hypothalamus. And this is a fantastic little being inside your head that's like an organ of perception. It helps you stay regulated. It helps you normally, like, what's homeostasis? Like, what's my baseline? And when do I know when I'm above my baseline? And it also, helps you with hunger and lust and all these other primal feelings. And it will send out little neurochemicals to the pituitary gland, which is the master gland, and then some neuropeptides and things will get excreted down into your body, and then in your body there's all kinds of receptors, and they'll go in to those receptors if they fit, and so then you'll have feelings in your body. So this is a little bit about how this happens here. This is the stress hormones coming down, stress neurochemicals down to the adrenals, which release whoosh, cortisol, adrenaline, all these other things. So this is the stress response. Here again is the physiology of stress. I wanted to show you a more accurate reflection of the adult body. And there's the adrenals. So when we're beyond that place of, is there somebody here for me that I can talk with and calm me down? Then after the social engagement piece, there's fight or flight and then freeze. Again, the physiology of stress, our digestion shuts down, our limbs fill with blood, our pupils dilate to look more for danger, our frontal cortex goes offline, right? Rebecca teaches a great thing about that, where this is like your green light, this is how you stay regulated, but when you get stressed, whoosh, that goes offline. Then Siegel calls it you flip your lid. So, you're like, you're just unreasonable time, right? Stress. But sometimes it's good too, right? Sometimes it's really cute. It can save a life, right? Again, here's the opposite. Here's the physiology of freeze, so sleep, collapse, and then dissociation. So a lot of people will dissociate. It's a very smart way for us to help mitigate our overwhelming feelings. We'll just space out. Sometimes when I talk to neuroscience, they're like, space out. So I don't do that so much with some of my audience, but I am going to do a little bit of that with you. So here again is how we regulate our stress, social engagement. We look around, we look for the people, we look at faces. And if you ever walked along in the city and everyone's going like this, of course you're going to want to go like that, right? Because you want to see. I mean, this is a key part of our anatomy. And when I'm talking with people, especially babies, I get my face very animated because it draws in their attention. Is my eyebrows touch, right? And so then, we have a natural orienting response. So we'll key, am I in danger? So we'll have a way that we scan. And there's key anatomy in here. I'm going to do one little slide on that. But we're looking for safety. And when you come in here to the clinic, and you get the greeter, right? It says, hi, how you doing? And I remember Jenny said, if you don't remember their name, you forget. Right? I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Say, hey, how you doing? And you get them to look at you in the face, and you smile. And there's ways you can feel inside your body, like, glad. And your voice will reflect that. So this is a key part of our anatomy, to help people feel safe. And it starts when we're babies. So again, here's the vagus nerve and all the things that it touches. So, the quest for safety. All right, so here's the little tiny bit of intense anatomy, and then we won't come back again. Well, you're saying, darn. All right, so here, again, is the hypothalamus here, pituitary, right? And so here's the midbrain, and all those cranial nerves that come out from there. And so, but when we're scanning for danger, we're looking for danger. So there's key parts of our limbic brain, which is the emotional part of our brain. And this is looking up underneath the brain. So here again is the amygdala. The amygdala. Have you all heard of the amygdala? Right? They're the ones that say, all right, if there's danger, get aggressive. Right? And then underneath this is the hippocampus. That's where some memories store. Now we know that memories stored other ways in our bodies. Right? So, so here we have again, this is our limbic brain. This is like the hypothalamus is there too. The organ of perception. Are we safe? they're not safe, they are safe. There's somebody over there I want to get closer to. If there's a good yummy meal, smelling, sensing, feeling, all that goes into our brain. So here we have again, I want just to keep showing you these pictures. This is that prefrontal cortex part of our brain that really helps us stay regulated. It's right here on my, these are things we help build our children, in our children by being regulated and being with them. But when a woman's in labor, often this part goes off, right? The woman just gets into her primal brain, into her place. And so she's looking to you to help keep the surround safe. Okay. So memory here, am I safe? What's this red? I have another picture. No. So from the very beginning, you'll see that babies will seek the parent out for comfort. So in the model that you have here, you're providing that place of safety, as if not exactly a parent, a safe person. You're creating safety here. I'm going to have a slide just for that. So, a little more information, another little bit about the autonomic nervous system. I just want you to see. I hope you can have these slides. You're welcome to them. This comes from John Chitty. He's one of my teachers, and he says, Kate, please, please tell people there's a functional part to this nervous system. It's not all fight, flight, rest, rebuild. It's functional. Your body is so wonderfully adaptive, amazingly resilient, and it has these skills. But you have to become aware of them, or else, like I said, sometimes you'll just get hijacked. Right? But so here we have, again, the social. That's its own nervous system, right? So all these things, language, bonding, the afterglow of sex, the feeling of love, and that's very earthy, yeah, primal, right? And how we are together, social organization, how our voice. I used to be in deep relationship with a midwife still, and her name's Lois, and sometimes all she had to do is walk in the room and say hello, and the birthing mom would be like, oh, now I feel safe. I bet you had that feeling too, midwives. Suddenly, you walk in the room and you say, hi, I'm here, shoosh. There's a feeling of safety. You can feel it in the room. It becomes so key, right? So then and there's play and interaction, but in the sympathetic branch, the functional range, it's our daily work, it's how we're doing, it's our recreation, it's our play, it's how we are during the day especially. And then our functional parasympathetic, yes, there's rest and rebuild, but it's a time for digestion, for rest, for meditation. And if you're really curious about this, I want to recommend Paul Ekman. He is a specialist in how the face especially. And he identified all the little muscles in our face. And he and another colleague spent lots of time identifying each little function of all these muscles. And they would put their faces in all these funny positions and notice how they felt. And your face will evoke feeling in the body. And vice versa. Right? So they made a television program about him called Lie to Me. Because the autonomic nervous system does not lie. And he teaches classes in micro expressions. So in any case, this is all part of how we function, our normal function. And our normal function also is in the stress response. So our first response, usually when we get stressed, is to seek out support. And that's that social branch. If that doesn't work, then we'll go into some other strategies, fight or flight, like I've gone over, and then finally immobility. And the thing about our species that sets us apart, as well as language and other things, from other mammals, is that we allow ourselves to be held, caressed. It's called immobility without fear. Okay, so when I work with people, I get them to see these states. If there's dysfunction, I help mobilize them up. Social engagement is at the top of the ladder, And that's where you all are strong in the JJ way. Here are the ways that we can change these patterns. And so the face, the voice, the heart, our breath, and there's ways we can breathe to calm down ourselves, how we are in our bodies. But it's really how we are together. So I just want to, in the last little bit here, just tell you a little bit more about how we are together, and then show you how the JJ way really lives this. So we all have a set point. It's unique, depending on our history, even our ancestors' history, right? Sometimes we feel safe, and there's all kinds of ways that we can work with this. It's my job. It's not tonight's lecture, but I can tell you more about it. But it becomes part of our biology, who we are together, right? Inside and the outside. And here are all the experiences that can layer on top of each other. So the trouble is that when we get fixated, when we get stuck, we loop inside these patterns of stress and overwhelm in our history. And sort of my job is to help recognize that and help those feelings out. So we are really in the midst of an affect revolution. It's how we are in our face, in our heart. And I'm going to talk about the heart in a few minutes. So just as we're around the corner here toward finish, I want to talk a little bit more about how we're doing with our perinatal population. Okay, so in birth trauma, what we know right now is between 25 and 34% of our women are having traumatic. That's what they report. Right? 1 in 4 of these women are going to have post-traumatic stress symptoms. In maternal and infant mortality, we're looking at 23.8% of maternal deaths per 100,000 births, and that number is rising. We're actually nationwide at 6 infant deaths per 1,000, which is pretty good. But when we start to look at it specifically, when we start looking at where places are that there's more deaths for mothers and for infants, it gets pretty intense. Here is on the list of all the countries in the world, starting with the worst, which is Afghanistan in terms of infant mortality. We're number 167 between Serbia and Croatia in America. So the most powerful country in the world that spends the most money on healthcare. Here are the breastfeeding rates is where I see good news. So this has gone up 22.3% in terms of the amount of people that are breastfeeding for 6 months. And one of the things I really like is that now almost 20% of our hospitals in our country are baby friendly. You all know what that means? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It means that we really take that first hour after birth and we have protocols for that. That's when the safety template gets laid down. Right? I see good news in breastfeeding. Right? And then the mood disorders we're looking at now. And when I first started teaching, perinatal mood disorders were at 10%, maybe less. And now they're at 15 to 21% for really understanding a lot of pregnant women have anxiety. We're really looking at that connection of anxiety and depression together. But what's really sobering is when we're looking at low-income women and teens have rates of up to 60%. Right? Our young people who are pregnant. And I'm going to talk about this later. So here are just some slides. So here we have, you see, even though we're better at working with women of color, it's still much higher than any other population. Here's the statistics on maternal deaths. And then they've gone up. As you can see, other countries have gone down in our country. And you can see there's 3 times as worse for women of color, and the gap is widening. I have some new data to show you today, an article that came out 2 days ago about New York City. Again, here are pregnancy-related deaths and how they've gone up. In Texas, it's because they've defunded medical care for low-income women who are pregnant. That's what they're thinking. It's a Planned Parenthood. So this was going around on the internet, and I snagged it. I am not sure if it's true or not, but it feels true to me. I mean, it's a lot happens. So when we're talking about ancestral patterns, right? We're talking about suffering that happened in your great-great-grandmother if you grew up here. I mean, I used to live around here. My mother grew up here. In fact, she had a book written about some of her work, trying to combat racism in this area. This is a very tough area for racism, or at least it was. So we're looking at our ancestors, I mean, generations of suffering and how we feel in our bodies. So maybe we inherited a predisposition to feeling unsafe for good reason, right? For good reasons. So here's some data from New York City, and I took this straight from the article, and I have it here as a resource, and I have the study that here also. But it looked at how women who were treated in New York City, and I have felt that this is very sobering. That just some of the cases that they talked about in that, how women were treated because of their color of their skin. And it was just a very sobering. I'm not going to read these out loud because they're just so tough. I'm going to have to look at them. And so when we're looking at women nationwide, there's more than death happening. There's morbidity. It's how women are suffering from lack of good quality care. And so it definitely has discrepancies and disparities. So yeah, they've increased. So we're looking at maternity care. That's really the quality. It's just gotten more, and the discrepancies have gotten wider. But that's not what's happening here. Again, I wanted to point out that if we invest in this model, like one of the questions I continually have for Jenny is, who's picked up your model? Yeah, nobody. Why not? So I mean that's the next step for me, is wondering why. So if we invest in this prevention, this is from an article about human investment from this man Heckman, and he looked at ages 0 to 5. And if you invest in a person's life in that time, you would save $7 for every $1 spent. So you're looking at spending money is a good investment in human development at this time. Pregnancy, probably preconception also, and the first few years of life. This is where we're going to save the most and produce the most health in our people. But we spend so much on this end. Huge. Okay, the JJ way. So how does it feel to come into the clinic implicitly? I mean, I get the sense from listening to Jenny that there's somebody there with their face and their voice and their heart saying, welcome, welcome. We're glad you're here. And then they go out into the waiting room. So the first time I heard Jenny speak, she goes, we don't have classes. There's no classes. We just send someone out to the room to sit with them and listen to them, to see where they're at. And we give them education there. So that to me is a lot different than any other place I've gone in terms of education. Usually they have big classes and they teach breastfeeding and birth preparation and things. But not here, am I correct?
Right.
Yeah. Like the greeter goes out and sits, like when they look at your record and they help you and they listen to you, right? And then when people feel listened to, they feel loved. When they feel met like that, they feel understood, right? So this is feeling seen, heard, met, and equals feeling love. So oxytocin starts to flow, right? Good feelings start to flow. And that equals feeling safe, right? Feel safe. So then there's a living room type where, like, I saw these pictures of the couches and the dads and the kids, and they're all in there bouncing on the couches, and the dad's there, and the mom's getting her exam. Everyone's included. It feels like home, right? It feels like home. So when I notice that in my body, I feel relaxed. Yeah, I like being at home. I feel myself when I'm at home. So it includes the whole family. So it's how we are together. And there's the science behind it. So here is our resiliency score that Marty Glenn and I developed. And these are all the things we use when we want someone to orient to how they're feeling good right now. Can you identify people in your life that have done this for you? Right? Somebody gets me. Somebody understands me. I feel at home. I'm home. I feel home. At home somewhere, right? These are all things that will help settle the nervous system, and sometimes they'll even change the nervous system, which is something I'm really interested in, especially with women who want to conceive, who are pregnant, who have little kids and babies. Because you're not only having a baby, but you're influencing the future generations, right? You can do it with the help of someone like Jenny. So, our body. How do we know we feel safe? It's that vagus nerve that's embracing us. It's the information that we feel. It's how our brain interprets the information that's coming in. And some of us don't feel safe. We're out here questioning, how can I feel safe? But a lot of us know how to feel safe. And so the next step I have for us tonight is feeling just one little bit of safety, one little bit of feeling support. That's how I want to put it. Because I will never tell somebody you're going to feel safe. That's something that you have to come to. So the environment is key, right? And that's what you have here. So here we have examples of how the heart reflects, can be reflected in the voice. This is the work of HeartMath. Has anyone here heard of HeartMath? HeartMath.org. So if you breathe slowly in and out and put a positive feeling in your heart, it creates a good feeling in your body. So this is what it looks like when it's measured, appreciation, and that's frustration. So if you're in here sitting at the front desk and you're not having a good day, there might be some way we can find a way to feel that appreciation in your heart, because it will reflect in your voice and it emanates out. So they've been able to measure the field around a person. So, especially for a mom, when she's holding the baby. So in these environments that are perceived as safe, our autonomic nervous system and endocrine system will release hormones that evoke a sense of calm, connection, support, and social engagement. So this is what happens here. My perception of it is here. You help people feel safe, feel wanted, welcome, feel protected, a sense of belonging, and the sense of feeling seen, heard, and felt. So we're going to shift and do this exercise at the end, or almost at the end of the lecture. But this is an idea that we have layers of support in our body. Here is the embryo and the amnion and the chorion. And here's a mom who's pregnant who has a layer of support in the dad, but a lot of moms don't have that, right? So we can feel that. We can create that here. And for every mom and partner and baby, there should be 2 layers of support. A lot of our families don't have that. So I want to talk about that after I finish. We apply this as a theory. You can see it's probably innate. You all know. But there's the science here that supports it. So you can have a healthy pregnancy with all these things. But you can also add in those pieces of the face and the heart and the voice, and how we can generate a sense of connection and feeling seen and heard and felt, that we feel safe. Everyone, every clinic, every health setting can take in the JJ. All right, that's the end of my lecture.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope.
Thank you, Kate.
I'd like to take any questions, and then I'd like us to try the 2 layers of support. And I'll show you how we're going to do it, okay? Is anybody out there?
They're saying so much awesome information. Thank you. They're all there.
Okay, anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Typing away.
All right, well, I'm happy to take any questions.
I have kind of an odd question, I guess, or odd situation, in that I'm adopted. I never knew anything about my birth mother or anything like that. My real mom, of course, raised me. But she didn't see me until I was 6 weeks old. And, you know, I couldn't help but think about that as you were going through the lecture with all the different layers and so on. And I had no idea. I had a feeling clearly that my birth mother, I was not a welcome surprise. I'm sure she was in it. I just recently found out some details about her. She was in her 30s and you know, was involved in a relationship, but she didn't think she wanted to marry the guy. When she said she wanted to get married, I said, well, go away, you know, forget about it. And so she, you know, was on her own. But it just, you kind of wonder what is my ancestral.
And your
what did my mother, who was not,
yeah.
yes, probably happy about this whole situation.
Yeah.
How did that affect, you know?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Adoption is a very difficult territory, is how I would put it. I mean, if there are ways you can bring consciousness to adoption, and I've seen it done where you can talk to the baby and say to the baby, right now is not a good time for me to be a mother, but I cherish you, and I'm going to find a way for you to be, you know, to go off and have another family. It's still so heartbreaking with a baby, but you can be with that, an idea of that if the mother had support, how would that feel in your body as a baby? And then you can also just imagine, there's great stories of what we call conscious adoption, where they talk with the baby, they do it very slowly. There's a way that there's the birth parents and the adopted parents can be together, and it happens slowly over a period of time. But it still can be hard for the baby, and a lot of sense can be made from this pattern over time. And you can find resources in the pattern, and when I help people find those places that are normalizing, that are helpful, the nervous system can shift. But it is difficult territory.
I think I have a question too that's on top of that. I came into the birth field to get out of the field that I was in, which was social work and working in the foster care system, and I have 5 kids that are adopted. And so, but what I find myself doing when I'm working with women is everything that I know about attachment. I can pinpoint different things, and I find myself with women who are, in my opinion, struggling. Probably you're totally unaware, validating who they are and way more that they are capable of what they're doing, and stepping back a lot more than someone who I think is capable of doing it. Not that I think they're not capable, but just validating a lot more people that I can see those markers of attachment probably in them already. And so I just was curious if you have any suggestions as you see that, because I just, that's kind of where my heart goes, that I want them to make sure that they attach with their baby.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who are not familiar with attachment theory, it's a very researched theory, and you can discover your own attachment styles now with quizzes and online, and you can read great books about it. And there's secure attachment, which is only 60% of us are about 60%, right, Rebecca? 40% of us are insecurely attached, and there's different categories in that. But you can, if you feel like you are from this insecure pattern, you can become in what they call earned secure pattern. So what you're talking about is promoting that sense of capacity and helping them sort of feel that innate mastery inside themselves. And then you can help them gently sort of see what it is about their history that might be affecting the way they're bonding with their baby. It happens all the time.
It's 8 o'clock.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot to learn around attachment and how to be with people. And in the birthing field, it would be great for you all to know more.
Can you talk a little bit about the fact that you can heal epigenetically, you can still do something about it.
Yeah, well, this is a big topic right now. And in fact, last couple of days I've been having this passionate discussion with an epigeneticist about social epigenetics or evolutionary psychology, sometimes they call it. And you can recognize patterns that come from our history. And really, what we are is not our genes, but the expression of our genes. What environmental things have influenced us so that our genes can get expressed. So there's ways you can bring awareness to what are the patterns. And so you would do simple exercise of looking at where do you come from, like who are people in your family that have influenced you. And sometimes we can find the heroes, and sometimes we can find those tragedies and those traumas. And then in the now, you can begin to recognize how much of me is here as me, and how much belongs to the ancestors. And I even have people say, okay, feel your body here. And then what happens when you say, well, that belongs to you? You over there, that's yours. And you can see maybe there's an ancestor here. That's yours, that's mine. It's a little tricky. It's an advanced sort of feeling into the body. But the first step is to acknowledge the layers of experience. And I can illustrate with a story if you wish. Does that help? This is a story I tell a lot. It's from a book called The Neuroscience of Relationships by Thomas Codolino, who's a psychotherapist. And he tells the story of a young man named Joaquin, who came into his practice and said, I'm having no luck with women. I try really hard. I'm 35. I feel like something's wrong with me. And so Dr. Codolino discussed with him, I thought, tell me about your childhood. He said, oh, I had the greatest childhood. I had all these uncles and aunties, and they loved me. My parents loved me, and my grandparents loved me. I said, well, what happened? What patterns are you dealing with? Well, I tend to hoard money, and I'm very secretive, and I don't talk very well with these women, and I end up going away, and I'm feeling like a failure. So Dr. Kozlowski said, oh, now I want you to go back to your family and ask questions about your ancestors, right? So the next appointment, Joaquin flies in the door. You'll never guess what. What? Well, it turns out once he started asking about his family history, it's almost as if the floodgates opened, like permission to tell the history. The story of Joaquin's family is they came from Czechoslovakia during a time when there was the war going on there. And people in their family began to be disappeared, taken away and never found. So the family decided that they were going to migrate to the United States, and they began to hoard money and become very secretive. And they weren't going to tell anybody. And they did. All of them secret themselves out into the country, came here to live. But Joaquin was conceived here with none of that history. But they made a pact never to tell him. But how did he know? In his body, he knew. And he carried those markers inside him. So when he asked the question, the floodgates opened and healing began to happen. Healing wants to happen. So really being able to address the history and also saying, this belongs to you. And then in the now you have a consciousness to say, what is it I want for myself? And sometimes it can be like swimming upstream. It can take a little while to heal those places. And sometimes you genuinely have difficulty in the culture. It's like we have a cultural problem in our country. Not only around birth and women of color, but families with babies and children. We just don't know how to support them very well.
What was the name of that book again?
The Neuroscience of Relationships.
There's one question online, Kate. Is the stress trauma only passed down through the woman, or do the father's genes play in as well?
Yes, the father's genes play in as well. In fact, there's some really great research now on stress in fathers and how that goes into the sperm. So, and they've also looked at the health of our teenagers and how they are in their bodies can also change the genome. So we're looking at, in my mind, health starting with teenagers and sometimes even 8-year-old girls. I'd like to work more with girls to feel empowered in their bodies. Because so many of us feel betrayed by our bodies. There's a lot of work to do. Any other questions before we stop?
I have a
Can we do this
question.
one thing? Yeah.
If there's an adult that suffers from anxiety and not really sure where it's coming from, but know that they had a traumatic birth, or that their mother was suffering from anxiety when the baby was in utero, how would you address that, or how would you help her
Well,
to?
I would want her to get a therapist, a good one who understands somatic work, understanding how to help her feel in her body and normalize some of what happened. But I would recommend a body worker who's trained in trauma resolution work and understanding perinatal work in particular. I don't know anybody. Oh, I have to see where she lives. She's in Florida. There might be some people here. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Mhm.
But it'd be good to have someone who understands. It's a therapeutic in the relationship. Yeah. I see a lot of women for birth trauma. A lot of times they come to me because their first birth was traumatic, and then they want in the second birth, as they head towards the birth, it feels similar, right? So I help them I help make sense of what happened, and then I help them differentiate and see in the now, how is it? Oh, it's very different. Conception was different, pregnancy's been different, and having the baby in a different way. You know, sometimes you can have little light bulbs go off. Oh, it's not the same. It is. There's possibility here. It can change. But there's lots of ways to deal with these things, you know. There's suggestion. So before we end, will you do this one thing with me? 2 layers of support. Very. Rebecca, will you come be guinea pig? Where did Trey go? Did he leave?
Yeah.
I need another volunteer. Stephanie, the reader. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it's 2 layers of support exercise. And it involves touching someone and being touched. So the idea is the first person, which will be Stephanie, she gets to receive some support from Rebecca. And just notice what it feels like. And you get to negotiate that. A lot of times people just like to have a hand on their shoulder. So just notice what it's like to feel support in your body. So then the third person supports this person. And your job is to notice anything change. So Rebecca, can I support you? Yes. And how would you like to have this?
You can touch
You raise your contact? Yeah. You notice anything different? Yeah. So then you negotiate disconnection. So just let me know when it's okay for me. Would you be willing to try this? Just one time, all the way, all 3 of you, all the way through? No? All right, break up into groups of 3, and I will cue you, okay? Jenny, you have to do it too.
Yes, of course.
Those of you at home, you can try this too. All right, so
much taller than everybody in this room.
All right, so pick who the person is who wants to receive first.
I feel like Jenny should receive.
Yeah.
I think Jenny
And then,
how would you like me to support you? Okay.
then go ahead, how do you negotiate support?
This is your time to be quiet and receive. Yes.
So just the turn person, notice, see if you can notice the second, when the second layer comes on.
Well, we need to delete all of it.
And now negotiate this connection. And now switch. Someone else gets their turn. So again, turn person can say how you want to be supported. And then the third person, second layer of support. Turn person, notice what it's like to have 2 layers of support.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I get your turn. You get to do this.
Okay.
Can I touch you? Yes.
So
Not even looking like.
you can feel it. You can feel that second layer. So negotiate disconnection. And then the last person gets to go.
It's funny because I feel like the minute you touch me, I feel it. Yeah.
I feel it.
It is. Bye-bye.
Baby girl.
There you go. Thanks for fun. There you go.
That's where, and maybe how that all comes in.
All right, last person gets to go.
You know what I mean?
Is everybody gone?
We did our full share.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm wondering if I could send that to my, of course. Could I get your permission to share it? Let's put it in our newsletter? Yeah. Got the whole world.
Which you speak is.
That's good. Fantastic.
No, you were very kind, I feel like that.
All right. How was that for you?
Yeah.
Did you notice the second layer? Yeah?
Yeah.
So for women who come in here, if you all are supporting each other as staff, they'll feel that, you see. And how you support a woman in the waiting room, her baby will feel that. She kind of felt sense of it in your body, what it feels like to feel that support. So that's great.
But some people are asking online, can any of the participants share their experience for them of what they just experienced?
Well, it's interesting because I was just thinking about the fact that when you have a mother that is missing that support, particularly from their partner, particularly from, you know, the father of their child, for whatever reason, like, you can really feel the difference of that second layer of support, where it's almost like we can do our part by helping them identify what that second layer is. So when they are in a scenario, maybe you're dealing with a single mother, rather than just being solo, really ensuring that in all parts of her care, in each and every step, she's got that double layer. So it's not just you she feels safe and secure with, but it's the other people that are there supporting her as well. Because they're not only supporting her, but then supporting you, and it's like, I mean, that triangle of support.
Yes.
But it's very, I mean, you can literally feel the difference.
Yeah.
Jimmy, to your point, what we were saying is that you can feel that first layer of support kind of settle in when they get supported, when you're the one, the primary receiver. So everyone, when you're giving support, you're letting go of something of yourself, but then when you receive back from somebody else, everybody gets that extra benefit.
Absolutely.
I was just going to piggyback on what you were saying, how vital it is to support for single moms. But even you notice a huge difference in a birth environment when you have a dad who doesn't know how to support, but you can be a support for the dad to support the mom. I mean, there's so many situations where we help the dad deliver the baby, we don't even touch the mom, but yet it's this really supportive scenario of just the dad feeling confident in what you're doing for the mom, and that double layer of support during that birth.
So
Mary go negative, but I was going to say, and that's why it's so important to recognize if there's a negative influence, and somebody is not that second layer of support, but instead is drawing. Yeah, and how that gets tricky because sometimes you have to expel them.
it's true, gently, with grace and humor.
Go to the store. That's right. You go get
Well,
the
Mary coined this phrase, second layer of support. She was a home birth midwife in Ventura, California. When she started employing support for herself while she was at the birth, she had a string of 60 births with no transfer. She was a home birth midwife. So that's extraordinary. Normal transfer rates around 20%. So she went over a year with no transfers to hospital, just using support for herself and her staff while they were attending births. So I leave you with this to simmer and maybe do more. But I feel like there is really good science that supports why the JJ way works. You're helping women feel safe here. And you're doing it through connection, contact, and creating a culturally appropriate environment where people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like they're understood and that they matter. So keep up the good work. I'm going to go around spreading the good word. And I hope you can get, I'm at your disposal whenever you need for more information and science for your minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. They're all saying thank you. Bye.